YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my January 2022 reading wrap-up. If you're not already aware, I do weekly entertainment wrap-ups of everything I read, watch, and listen to, but today we're just talking about the books. I'm just going to address what I'm wearing really quickly. This is a very comfortable robe, and I could not bring myself to take it off to film this video. Look, it even has a hood. The funny story about this robe is Chad actually bought a robe just like this a couple of months ago, and I've been very jealous of it ever since because guys' robes are always nice and long. This one has a hood, it's got pockets, it's so soft. And then girls' robes tend to be those ones that are about the length that doesn't really cover your butt when you do anything besides just like stand straight up and down, so I decided I needed one. So I bought one and I thought I was getting a different color so we wouldn't have the exact same robe, but we have the exact same robe because I messed something up. So now we're accidentally twins, which is funny because he's a twin. Wardrobe aside, I'm going to start with the nerdy hardcore stats and charts and then get into what I read. Also, I put chapter markers in all of my videos, so if you need to skip forward to something or if you need to go back and revisit something, those are all down below. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please be sure to do so and click that bell icon so you're notified when I upload. In January, I read 16 things for a total of 5,363 pages. That takes into account converting audiobook minutes to pages, so about 2,071 of those pages were actually about 63 hours of audio. The age breakdown for these books was 12 adult books, 2 YA books, and 2 middle grade books. I read 14 novels, 1 graphic novel, and 1 anthology. This month, the biggest chunk of what I read was contemporary fantasy and mystery thriller, followed by nonfiction, romance, historical fiction, and horror. If you adjust my page count, not a lot changes. Most of these books were from the library, but I also read books that I already owned, some from NetGalley and some from Book Depository. Needless to say, I didn't do very well when it came to read your shelves. I read 6 audiobooks, 5 paperbacks, 4 ebooks, and 1 hardcover. Most of my books were in the 300 to 399 pages range, and nearly everything was published in the last 2 years. The majority of these books were written by female authors, but there was more variety when it came to protagonist genders. In terms of setting, half were set in the United States, but the others were set in other worlds: New Zealand, Ghana, Australia, the United Kingdom, and Canada. In terms of diversity of subject matter, lots were queer. There were some that had to do with race, disability, some that were intersectional, some that were translated, but a big chunk didn't have any diversity worth mentioning. In terms of star ratings, this month I read 2 3.5-star reads, 6 4-star reads, 4 4.5-star reads, and 4 5-star reads. Let's start with the lowest rated read and work our way up to the highest, shall we? This is a moment that kills me because I know when I go back to do my best and worst of 2022 at the end of the year, I'm going to be very annoyed that my worst book in January was a 3.5-star book and I still have to claim it as a worst book. That book was Trouble the Saints. This is a historical fiction fantasy set in, I believe, the 1940s, and one of our protagonists, the first one we meet in any case, is an aging assassin. She's a woman of color and she has a gift when it comes to her hands, which means that she is very skilled with a knife. She tried to get out of this life because her previous lover didn't want her doing it anymore, but she was drawn back in by one last job, which broke them up years ago. Later in the book, we also get his perspective, and we get the perspective of a woman that works in one of the nightclubs. This had a lot of fantastic representation. I love the way the magic was talked about, and like I said, it's gonna kill me that I'm gonna have to talk about this as a worst book come next year. My other 3.5-star read was Momo. This one is translated from German, and it's the one that was published in 1973, if you saw that little blip on my year's published chart. This is one of 3 books I read this month for the 12 challenge, which you probably saw going around Instagram or Twitter if you happen to be on those things. Basically, you got 12 different people to recommend you 1 book each, and you're meant to read all of those books. I am working my way through that challenge. Eventually there will be a vlog, and that's actually partially why I had a lot more books from the library this month than I really meant to. Momo is a fantasy book about this girl named Momo who moves into this new city. She's there by herself, she doesn't have parents, she lives in a ruined amphitheater, and people around town come to her when they have problems. She's a very good listener, and she basically solves their problems just by listening to them. Eventually, these men in gray come to town and they start taking over the adults' lives with their time-saving bank, and it's up to the children to fix things. This has magic and time travel, and I can see why this is a beloved children's classic. On to my 4-star reads, the first one being Tide Song. This was my graphic novel this month, and it's about a girl who is a descendant of dragons, and therefore she has magic over wind and water. She really wants to go to this special magic academy, but before she goes, she's going to live with distant relatives she's never met before so she can brush up on her magic, so her application will be that much stronger. While she's there, there's some clashing with her relatives, and some bad things go down, and she basically has to fix some mistakes. What I liked about this is we got character growth not only from our main character, but also from the people around her, and she really decided who she was, or kind of figured out who she was through this journey, and I really liked seeing that. Next we have Bloody Spade. This is the first in a duology. The second book isn't out yet, otherwise I would be reading it immediately. This one also has to do with magic, but magic was only restored to this world about 7 years previously. There's some people in the world that have magic, and there are some people in the world that don't, and basically a police force was created by people who have magic so they can police the people with magic. However, there seems to be somebody kind of breaking more magic into the world and doing nefarious things to do that, and because of that. So it's down to this police force to kind of figure that out. Two of the people in this force are brother and sister, and they were both orphaned on the night that magic returned to the world. This was both very fun because people have different powers and it's fun to kind of figure out how things are going to go on, but it's also not for the faint of heart. There are people that get kidnapped and tortured in this book. Next we have His Only Wife, which is another book I read for the 12 challenge. This is the one that was set in Ghana, and it's about this woman who is in an arranged marriage to this guy because his family doesn't want him hanging out with the woman he's had a child with anymore. And they kind of figure if he has a proper wife, then he will leave that woman alone because they don't like her. This family has made a lot of promises to our protagonist, told her all about how that other woman is just terrible and how he is going to settle down with her, and that doesn't really seem to be what's happening as time goes on. There are a lot of characters in this book that I absolutely detested, such as her uncle, who feels like he's entitled to all of this wealth that she now has access to, even though he didn't take in her and her mother when her father passed away. There's a rainbow outside. That's cool. There's also absolute hypocrisy. There's people that feel entitled to things simply because they're related to other people. It both made me very angry and made me very hopeful because this protagonist weathered a lot, and I really liked seeing how she got through this situation. Next we have the soulmate equation. In this book there's a new dating app that uses your DNA to figure out your soulmate. Our main character had a child when she was very young, so she hasn't really had time for dating, and she kind of thinks that this is a little bit preposterous. However, her best friend is a romance writer and thinks that this is a really, really interesting thing. Maybe our main character would care more about it if the guy that came up with it didn't seem like a complete tool. They've got a total hatred vibe going on between the two of them until they realize that they are a 98% match. Since the app is going public soon, he's pressured from his board to actually date her, and they have to figure out what this means. I liked this premise, I enjoyed this conflict, I really liked the side characters in this. Both her kid and Fizzy were just wonderful side characters. And this is basically all I ever wanted out of a Christina Lauren book. Next we have Quiet in Your Bones. This is the one that took place in New Zealand, and our main character is a crime writer. He's actually got this big blockbuster book that went out, and now there's a movie about it, so he's rolling in that cash. However, when we meet him, he's recently had an accident, so he's back in his family home. Basically, so people are always around because he's got a bit of concussion going on, he's got a cast on his leg, he needs some help. However, he doesn't really like being there because he doesn't really like his father, and his mother kind of ran away from them 10 years ago. At least that's what everybody else thought. As we learned within the first couple of chapters, she actually died 10 years ago and her body is found not far away. From this point, our main character tries to figure out what happened to his mom, but this is complicated by the fact that he is an unreliable narrator because of the aforementioned concussion. Not to mention that there's a giant cast of characters that live around them in this gated community, and it could have been any one of them because most of them lived there back then and they are still around now. This had some great twists and turns, and it was fun to finally read a male character who is unreliable because of taking drugs due to a brain injury, because usually when I see that type of stuff, it's always a woman and nobody believes her about anything. That rainbow really is kicking ass right now. Last on the 4-star list is Death Prefers Blondes. This is a YA book about drag queens who perform heists. Honestly, need I say more? I might as well just say that and move on. What I can really say about this is I love that this actually got very, very complex. Not only did we get to know the main cast of characters very, very well and their interactions in their group, we also got to learn a pretty in-depth backstory about the inner workings of the evil people in their city at the time and what's going on a kind of a global scale, and I didn't expect that from this book. book, but it delivered it. On to my 4.5 star reads, the first one being A Flicker in the Dark. This is another mystery thriller about this girl who, when she was 12 years old, she found out that her father was a serial killer. Now it's almost 20 years later and somebody else seems to be killing the way he did. She doesn't want to believe that though, because then she figures that somebody within her life is probably doing the killing. Again, this seems to be a month of just great mystery thrillers that I very much enjoyed. Again, lots of twists, lots of turns. There's actually a twist in this that I was really hoping was going to happen, and it did at the end, and I loved that. And this is another example of a narrator where you don't really know if you should be believing her because she is taking some medication. So although I feel like that trope is being played a lot recently, it worked in this. My first read of the year was Reckless Girls. This is about a girl who followed a boy to Hawaii. They've been living together. Their plan was to go sailing around the world on his boat, but it's been docked because it needed some maintenance. And then he meets a couple of girls that want to go to this very, very secluded island, basically in the middle of nowhere, and they pay to get his boat fixed so that he will take them. Once they get to the small island with a very creepy backstory, they find a couple of other people there on another boat, but they seem very nice. They make friends really quickly, and everything is going fine on this vacation until another random person shows up and he's a little bit off. What I liked about this is we got to know what was going on in the present, and then we also got to see the backstories. And at first I thought we were just going to get the backstory of the protagonist, but then we started seeing backstories of the other characters, the girls they're bringing along on the boat, for example. And this gave you a couple of little clues as to where it was going, but it wasn't too overbearing. And then by the end to see kind of a twist and a turn, if you will. I feel like I'm saying twist and turn a lot in this video, but that's just the reading month I had. I like being surprised by books like this, and even when I can see something coming near the end, that's probably because the author wants me to see it at that point. I also read The Last Place You Look. This is about a private detective named Roxanne who has a client that comes to her and says, "My brother is on death row. He's going to be executed in 2 months. And the other day I swear I saw this girl that could totally exonerate him. Can you find her?" This means Roxanne goes to this very small community, but almost immediately the local law enforcement is looking at her sideways and going, "Why are you here? You don't need to be here. We solved that crime 15 years ago. Just leave it alone." However, as she starts digging into the backstory, some things are not adding up and she really wants to solve it. This is also complicated because she is currently grieving the death of her father, who was a police officer until he was killed in the line of duty about 6 months previously, and they had a very rocky relationship. Not to mention she is doing things in the grieving process that maybe are not the healthiest in the world, which means that her social life is a little bit of a mess. I thought this one was paced really well. I just wanted to keep listening so I would find out what was going to happen, and then with the different things that happen in this case and the stakes getting higher and higher, I very much enjoyed that. This month I also read Bad Luck Bridesmaid. This one is about a woman who was asked to be the bridesmaid at 3 different weddings and none of them happened. She basically figures she's bad luck because if you want her to be a bridesmaid, you're not walking down that aisle. She's commiserating the end of a relationship that her best friend just got out of after 2 years of being with this guy, and her best friend basically is like, "You know what, I still believe in finding the one. I still think that's going to happen, and I think that you should try to do that too," because our protagonist is the kind of person who always tells people right up front in the beginning, "I'm not looking for a relationship," and they always think she's lying until a couple months down the line when the other person is trying to get more serious and she's like, "Nope, not looking for a relationship." However, she decides to take a chance when her best friend's incredibly attractive cousin moves into town and they start dating. I've seen some reviews really mad at this because it's not like your classic romance. It's not like the classic rom-com type of thing. Like, there are points in this book where I cried because I felt really bad for what the character was going through. I also was very happy with how this book turned out because it's not the classic way that it turns out, and that's what needed to happen for this character. It's the only thing that made sense. On to my 5-star reads, the first one being Mediocre, which is all about the mediocre white men that run America, and this was great. I love that this was a combination of the lived experience of the author and then diving into the history of some men you might have heard of from America and how that's impacted society today. As I mentioned before when I talked about this book in my weekly wrap-up, I'm looking for another book that's like this but featuring Canadian history, so if anyone knows about one, please let me know down in the comments below. My next book is I Hope We Choose Love. This was my anthology. It was a combination of essays and poetry. I need to start by saying that this one has all of the trigger warnings. Obviously, there's going to be a lot about transphobia, there's going to be about being a woman of color, and how that is sometimes a huge challenge even in a country like Canada that seems to pretend that it's got its shit together, but it really doesn't. This was the other book I read this month for the 12 challenge, and this was absolutely phenomenal. I highly recommend it to everyone. The last two books on this list are really just neck and neck, and I had to choose one to talk about before I talk about the other one. So the penultimate book on this list is The Haunting of Lee Harker. This is the horror book that I read this month, and I also did an unboxing of this because it came in a Once Upon a Book Club box, so I'll be sure to link that down below in case you missed it. This book is about a woman named Lee Harker who lives alone, and she's lived in her house for 15 years, and as we meet her, something is in her house and attacking her. This book is incredibly atmospheric and creepy, and at about 100 pages in, we get a huge reveal that I didn't see coming but very much enjoyed, and then everything kind of twists into this very different feeling book, and I just very much enjoyed it. And it's so hard to talk about this without talking about that twist. However, I should mention that even throughout that twist, it still remains creepy and atmospheric, and I just really wanted to know what happened to make this situation unfold. And I was very scared that we weren't going to know because the reveal didn't come until about 10 or 20 pages until the end of the book. My favorite read of the month was Stay Another Day by Juno Dawson. This is about 3 siblings and their parents who are all meeting up at the family home in Edinburgh for Christmas, and some shenanigans that go down regarding that. Just when I thought I was going to get through an entire wrap-up without my camera battery dying, it died on me. The previous year they weren't able to celebrate the holidays together because the youngest sibling, who still lives at home, has an eating disorder and actually had to go away for treatment, so the brother went away to France on a little bit of a vacation, and although the parents and the elder sister visited the younger sister in treatment, they spent Christmas away from the family home as well. This year, however, the elder sister is bringing her boyfriend home, the brother, who is gay, is bringing one of his friends home, and they are a delight. I love that side character. And once everybody is all in the same room together, we come to realize that there is at least one huge secret, if not like 3, 4, or 5 huge secrets, that are going to change the course of things should they come out. I so thoroughly enjoyed this. I actually started this during one of my Wednesday traditions, which if you don't know about it, it's something I've been doing for over 7 years now, where every Wednesday without fail I will sit in a bathtub with a book and a beverage and just enjoy my quiet time. And I didn't realize that I'd been sitting in the bath for 5 hours until the water had just run really, really cold, and I realized it was time to go to bed, so I had to stop reading. Part of me very much wanted to stay up and just finish the book, but the other part of me is getting too old to do that. This book was full of secrets and feelings and people just coming back together or breaking apart depending on the situation and the exact moment in time. And I also enjoyed that the house itself was also a point of view character for a few little chapters. If you want to hear me talk more about these books or other books for that matter, the playlist for my weekly entertainment wrap-ups is always linked down below. It's got over 5 years and over 1,000 books of content. If you've read any of these, please let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!